Welcome to the Trellix Spotlight series. My name is Nick, and I will be your host. Today's session will focus on endpoint security for Mac overview and best practices. This webinar will be recorded. If you prefer not to participate in the recorded session, please feel free to disconnect at this time. A link to today's recorded presentation will be emailed to all registered attendees. This webinar is a brief overview covering common use cases and scenarios regarding this topic. It is not intended to be all-encompassing. If assistance is needed, please contact Trellix Technical Support. If you have questions during the webinar, please type them in the Q&A window. This webinar may run longer or shorter based on your participation, and we recommend asking as many questions as you can to make the most of this series. If the Q&A window is not displayed, click the tab at the bottom of your session window and click on the Q&A icon. We will answer the questions during the final section of this webinar. If you experience any audio issues during the webcast, please drop and attempt to reconnect. Our speakers today are Harsh Gotham and Pravas Kumar Dungdung. Harsh is a customer success engineer at Trellix, bringing and delivering extensive expertise on endpoint security products for Mac, Linux, and Windows to his role. Harsh is currently supporting all the endpoint products for the global Linux and Mac team. Pravas is a senior customer success engineer who brings a wealth of experience to the role. Pravas boasts a total of 8 years in the field, with the last 4 years dedicated to Trellix. His background includes support for the point products on Windows, Linux, and Mac. Currently, he provides support for endpoint products within the global Linux and Mac team. Ladies and gentlemen, Harsh and Pravas.
Thank you, Nick, for our introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone connecting with us today for our Spotlight series. Today, I'll be talking about ENS for Mac Threat Prevention module and ENS for Mac File module. Later, my colleague Pravas is going to talk about ENS for Mac ATP module and ENS for Mac Web Control module. Now, let's get started. Looking into today's agenda, first we will be talking about installation overview for latest ENS for Mac. Then we are going to move to best practices for ENS for Mac threat prevention. Then we are going to discuss on exclusions related to OS and ODS. How do we apply it locally? How do we apply it through on-prem or EPS SaaS? Later, we are going to touch best practices for ENS for Mac Firewall. After that, we are going to work on firewall debug logging and log analysis. This will help us to troubleshoot in case any block is observed while, as an administrator, you're looking into any issue. If the issue cannot be resolved by us, we are always there to help you for further troubleshooting and getting your system or business back to usual. Then we are going to look into overview of ATP and whitelisting procedure. We'll be also covering web control component of Mac. Now let's look into our first topic for today. As everyone knows, there were major changes which took place. Products which were released after April 2023 are all signed through Trellix certificates. Earlier, those were McAfee signed certificates. Please make a note of these couple of KBs, which will come in very handy if you are planning to upgrade your environment, if you have not already done that, or if you're planning to do a fresh installation. In a scenario, if you suppose you have if you are planning to upgrade just ENSM, which is on the latest Trellix certificate, while you have certain other products which are on the McAfee certificates, it will lead to some compatibility issues. Hence, these two KB 96485 and KB 91109 will come in handy for you. The first KB talks about the upgrade process for any Trellix Mac products which are released after April 2023. It will talk in details with steps how you can go ahead and perform the upgrade successfully so that none of the products are impacted and the system is functioning perfectly after the upgrade. KB 91109 talks about the latest MDM profiles. If you have an environment for which you use MDM tool to manage, please refer to this KB. They have configuration files which can be looked into and can be used to apply it, and you can help and manage. As we'll move forward from here, one more thing which I would like to highlight over here, that during the course of standard or standalone, local, or a manual installation, you will come across these couple of pop-ups which are definitely okay. This is the new pop-up which highlight earlier you used to get a McAfee pop-up. Now you're going to start to see a Trellix related pop-up. Uh, Post the installation, once the installation is successful and the products are installed successfully, you will get a Trellix alert on your top right corner of the screen where you'll have to allow these three process within your environment so that they have full disk access. And this can be done through system setting under privacy, and then you can go to full disk access and add it. You can either drag and drop, or you can click on the plus icon. From there you can go ahead and add it. Once you have added it, save it, and you will be able to use a product without any issue. Now let's look into one of the major important KBs which we always recommend our customer to refer to. If you are planning to do a fresh installation or upgrade, please make sure that your product is compliant to the that your OS is compliant to the product version you're trying to install. Uh, Make a note of the KB. KB is 84934. If you come down under supported operating system, just for an example, if you have a Sonoma device, the only supported product version as of now is 10.7.9 refresh build with the minor version of 242. I will later go ahead and show you from where we can go ahead and download. But before that, make sure before you go ahead or installation or upgrade, refer to this KB, make sure the product is compatible to the OS so that there is no application crash issue observed and the product functions without causing any hindrance. If we look into the first step from where we can go ahead and download the product, there are actually a couple of ways from where you can go ahead and do that. First will be if you just have to go to the new thrive.trellix, that is the Thrive portal. If you scroll down below under download, you will find this a page from where you can go ahead and download our packages. This is called product download, which you can find it under support tab. As you click on it, it will get you a window which you'll have to sign in with your grant number and email ID. Let me go ahead and sign it. Now we are into the portal. You can go ahead and type in Trellix Endpoint Security for Mac. With regards to Sonoma, which is the OS for my demo system, I am going to go ahead and install the supported version. Let's click on Trellix Endpoint Security for Mac Threat Prevention. Wait for the portal to load. As it loads, we can select the installation. And if we click on this, it will download the latest package for us, which is supported on Sonoma. That is standalone 242.dmg. Now, in a scenario, if you want to go ahead and install a standalone build which has all the components, not just TP and ATP, you can go ahead and select the first option, Trellix Endpoint Security for Mac. Once this load, here you will see all the packages related to Mac which are supported. That is TP, ATP, Firewall, and Web Control. Here you need to consider. Here you need to consider if you are looking to install the extension. There is all the extensions are common, which can be checked in for Windows. The extension remains common. The only difference here is there is a new, not a new, there is a separate license for endpoint security for Mac license extension. Once you have this checked in into your extension, you will be able to manage your Mac devices through EPO. If you look into the other way from where we can go ahead and download, let me just go ahead and sign into my on-prem EPU. Let me sign into my on-prem EPU, and then we'll show what needs to be done next. Once I'm into the EPU or the on-prem EPU, you can go to software catalog. In the software catalog, you can always search for Trellix Endpoint Security for Mac, and you will see these two versions. As explained earlier, why we have two versions. If I expand, you can see it over clearly. This is the Mac license extension. Kindly make a note of this version because this is going to come in handy in our future Spotlight series when I'm going to show you about the extension tab. These are the processes which I've already checked in earlier in my on-prem environment. Once this package is checked in, you will be able to create client tasks to deploy it across Mac devices. Once this package is checked in, kindly go to Extensions tab. Under Trellix Endpoint Security, you can see these common extensions specific for ATP, Firewall. Here we have license related to Linux, and here I have license specific to Mac. As you can see the version, this is same as it was showing in the software catalog, which we checked in earlier. We use the same other platform or other component extensions over here. Once this is verified, we need to make sure that all these extensions are running. If those are not running, or if one of these extensions are not checked in, you won't be able to make any policy changes effective onto that particular system, or you won't be able to uh, assign any task, and it is not going to get triggered to that particular OS. Once this is verified, we'll go to main repository. If we go to main repository and search for Mac, we will see all the ENS product component which we had checked in earlier through software catalog is over here. Once this is done, we can go ahead and create a client task through client task catalog. I already have a task created, but let me go ahead and show how you can go ahead and create a task. If you look into ENS for Mac 10.7.9 installation, this is the name which I have given for my task. The target platform I've selected here is Mac, and these are the two components I'm going to install it as per the task. First being threat prevention for Mac with the version 2.4.2, and then endpoint security firewall for Mac 10.7.9.37. Once we save the task, we can go ahead and apply it across. Either we can apply it individually, or we can apply it on a subgroup level, or we can even apply it as a tag. Once the task is once the task is created and applied, once we push it across, we are going to see the product under that. Now let me log into the EPO SaaS environment and show you how it looks like. Here, let's take an example for ENS for Mac installation through EPO SaaS environment. Uh, as you can see on your screen, I have a test group created called Mac, where I have a test Mac device already added into this group. If you look into the deploy tab, here I can create a deployable smart installer package which will install Trellix agent by default. Here I have selected the components as firewall as well as threat prevention. If I click on download installer, it will download a smart installer.sh file which you can use or execute on that particular system through terminal. You can also copy this link, which you can access it through Safari browser or any of the browser on your Mac devices. That will also download a smart installer, and that you can execute it again through terminal and install the product. So as soon as you execute, it is going to install the three products. As you can see, I already have the standalone package downloaded. Uh, Do note the same standalone package can be used for local or manual installation. Let's go ahead and execute this DMG file. This will give us a prompt to extract the package. As soon as we extract the package, it gives us a pop out where we have to allow. Now we click on continue, then we again click on continue. Here we'll have to accept the end user license agreement. Once we agree, it gives us installation type. Today I'm just going to install web control and threat prevention and firewall. Let's click on continue. It will ask for a password. I am going to enter my system credential. In your case, you will have to enter yours. This will validate and the installation process will start. Do note it takes some time for the installation to complete. In between, you are going to get the prompt. You can click on allow. At the top right corner, what you're seeing is the new PPPC disclaimer which pops out, which I had given a snapshot during our presentation, where you can see the latest software from FireEye Security Holdings is installing. Once the installation is done, we will get a prompt under system settings for this OS, where we'll have to allow the software to install, that is our Trellix extensions to be installed into the system. We will see it shortly once the installation is complete. At the top, you can here see that the menulet for Trellix icon has already created on the taskbar. Once the product is installed, you will see a much more brighter version. Here you can already see now that from gray it has changed to green, and now we get a pop-up for installation was successful. We are we are seeing this marked as disclaimer because currently we have not allowed a few of the extensions and the extension in the system setting. Now let's open system setting. As we navigate under privacy and security, if we go at the bottom of this page, we will see an option where we'll have to allow specifics for Trellix product. Let me just have a look over here. Okay, here this pop-up, what you're seeing is because the firewall is disabled and we have not allowed the extension. Now let's go back to system setting. Let's go to files full disk access. We already have added these, so that's not a concern. Now let's go ahead, go to preferences, type in our password again, and then we are going to enable the firewall component too. Do you see this system extension block pop-up? If we come back over here, you will see this pop-up, which we'll have to allow. As soon as we do, we'll get an option where we have to mark this. We can ignore this one. Let's go ahead and enable. Now let's move on to understanding best practices for Enos for Mac threat prevention. For on-access scan preference, always enable on-access scan because it checks every file the user accesses and detects malware before it runs. We also recommend that you enable network volumes under scan option 2 to scan files copied from or written to any network volumes. Let's move on to on-demand scan preferences. Always enable scan for archives and compressed files while performing on-demand scan. This is recommended if you have disabled scanning option for these files. Regarding on-demand scan schedule, scheduling an on-demand scan during non-peak hours is something which we recommend, as it could be performance intrusive and scanning or the completion of scan is given preference. When scheduling an on demand scan for the first time, schedule a full on demand scan of your entire hard disk. You can add regular expressions that match required patterns to exclude multiple files and folders or directories. Kindly note we will be having a demo shortly after this slide so that we can discuss more on how to add exclusions and how it functions. Here are some of the recommended exclusions. If you have somebody in your organization which uses Microsoft Outlook or Microsoft Office suite, uh, definitely adding Microsoft Outlook database under exclusion, Thunderbird database. These are just one of those examples, and even encrypted files. Encrypted files cannot be encrypted files cannot be scanned during on-demand scan. But kindly note, as soon as they are decrypted, it is going to be scanned through or detected through OAS. Generic plist files such as info.plist or version.plist for on-access scan. Here are some recommended exclusions and examples using wildcards. This is one specific to MDB extensions. I will be later giving you a demo how we can add these as we are discussing it in some short time. To exclude each user Outlook database files of different Microsoft Office version, this is the path, and that is the wildcard path which we have given as an example. uh, you can use that under OAS standard, or you can add that under ODS as well. To exclude info.plist file under applications, this is how the regular expression is for adding exclusions regarding info.plist file when we are trying to add that as exclusion. To exclude all versions of plist file or all the uh, version plist files. This is the regex. As you can see, to exclude the files with extension jar, rar, or var, we can use a wildcard question where if you look into it, we are defining the directory that is under private var temp location, only specific to that directory. Uh, asterisk dot question dot ar. The question is a wildcard where it can take J, R, or W from the jar, rar, and var extensions. The following scan locations are supported on Mac OS Full Scan and Custom On Demand Scan. All local drives, all fixed drives, all removable drives or map drives, home folder, user profile folder, temp folder, and file or folders. The following scan locations are supported on Mac OS only for quick scan. Please make a note of that. All removable drives, home folder, temp folder, file or folders. Exclusion for ENS for Mac. Here are few of the examples. Kindly note, exclusions are not always required for Trellix ENS for Mac, but they can be useful in certain situations to balance security and performance within the environment, or to avoid any false positive which can cause any impact to your day-to-day business. But with regards to false positive, we always recommend that you submit that file as a sample so that we can analyze it and we can get this suppressed through our Trellix uh, security lab. Um, what this does when we add exclusion, it definitely enhances the performance so that suppose there are particular applications which are being used in day-to-day BAU operations, it can be trusted the kind of files they are creating. If we add the correct size or correct type of regex as an example for exclusions, this will definitely help in improving the performance of the system and the overall environment. VM DK files, these are large files used by virtual machines and do not typically pose security threats. So definitely, we recommend that you add VMDK extensions under exclusions. Specific application. So if you know an application is safe but it triggers false positive, exclusion can be made temporarily. But as I suggested, if you are seeing any false positive, please reach out to us, submit that file or capture that file as a sample, upload it to us, and we can work with Trellix Lab to get it analyzed and suppressed if they are actual false positives. Development environment, developers often work with files that are flagged as suspicious, considering the uh, behavior, but are actually part of development process. So, and it could be even have an performance impact. So if there are specific applications which are used by the development team, already third party application vendors do provide recommended list of exclusions for AVs, which you can provide it to us, or you can refer to that and apply that as exclusion. Remember, the decision to use exclusion and how to configure them should be made based on your specific need and risk tolerance. If you are unsure, please consult with us or your security team within your organization. Now let's move on to exclusion for Mac. Next slide. What are the patterns included? The wildcards included are asterisks and question mark, as we have given in the example. What is the function of asterisk and what is the function of question mark? Specific file patterns to exclude, for example, to exclude all files in a desktop, you can use uh, desktop with where the example has given that you want to exclude all the files within the desktop folder location. We are adding asterisks at the end. Also exclude folders if we are selecting in the policy to exclude subfolders. This will also work the same. The file type refers to when you're adding an extension. File age, if you're using that as an option, you can make the changes as per change created or accessed. Select override exclusion configured on the client OS to override client exclusion list. So that suppose in your environment, if you have given permission and you do not have a password for the component, any user can make those exclusion, and that will make the managing of AV infrastructure redundant, as any user without proper credential will be able to add uh, any exclusion which would not be overwritten, and it is not something which we recommend. Now let's see how the exclusions are applied through EPU. If you remember in the previous slides, I have given you examples how the exclusions can be added. Process remains the same. In this case, I am using EPO SAS as an environment where I'm going to apply the exclusion and show that to you. The process remains the same even for on-prem EPO. Now, first and the foremost thing, if we are looking to apply a particular exclusions, okay, so the best habit is to verify what is the policy, duplicate that policy, and then apply the exclusions for testing purpose, okay, before it is applied across production. So first we will select the system, click on action, directory management, and we'll see the assigned policy. As we select the product here in endpoint security threat prevention for OS and ODS, we see Harsh SS default OS policy and Harsh SS ODS default policy. Are the policies applied? Then let's migrate to policy catalog tab. Here under Harsh SS default OS policy, currently you can see this is applied to Mac. Mac is the subgroup. If you remember in the system tree, I had a subgroup which I had created, and you can verify the same under policies as well over here. But this Mac specific subgroup, the OS and ODS policy applied will be Harsh SS default OS policy and Harsh SS ODS default policy. Now let's go back again to policy catalog. Let's open this policy. At the top, you will see enable OS scan option. This, once checked in, will enable OS across the product. Uh, All these options where you see specifically highlighted Windows only, it means it will work only specific to Windows. In a scenario, if you are not seeing any details for this, it means it will be common for Windows, Linux, and Mac. There will be certain places where you will see it will work for specifically Windows and Mac only, which we can apply it across even for Mac. As we scroll down, uh, you are seeing over here under process setting that I am using different setting for high risk and low risk process. uh, Now let's first look into how and when we add a high risk process or a low risk process. Suppose day in day out, if there are certain process of which suppose a developer team works on, and that has quite IO intensive task. By default, OS is going to scan each IO operations, as I have stated earlier. So the recommendation is that we add those process and child process as low risk. To I'll give an example how a process or a child process over here can be added as low risk. Let's click on add. We will highlight the path as library, applications, test. Here, test is the process which I am adding over here as low risk. At the bottom, you will see this process listed as low risk. In a scenario, if we have to add exclusions for or on Mac devices, we will navigate down under exclusions. We will click on add. Suppose I have to exclude a particular folder under all the users, as in all Mac users. A particular folder within their user details needs to be excluded. This is the way how I'm going to do it. Here you can see the asterisk shows uh, that all the users or any users, uh, and this my folder highlights the folder name which we have to exclude. Suppose we have to exclude the subfolders as well. We are going to go ahead and select this subfolder option. Now let's look into another example where we want to exclude all the particular extensions for VMDK. So there are a couple of ways how we can go ahead and do that. The same with using wildcard, we can define this. So what it does, in any directory, all the VMDK files will be excluded. Now let's save this. Now let's look into one more example. So suppose how file type option works. So suppose I have to exclude all VMDK files. I can just go ahead, type in VMDK and save. This will also do the same thing as per the above task. As you can see in the name, all file types, all files of type VMDK is excluded. Now let's look into the other options, which is specifically for file age. So suppose you want to, if you want to prevent, or if you want to exclude certain files which were changed recently or within the last couple of days. Okay, so what you can do, you can define the date, and all these operations will work on both read and write time. So here you can define the date for any change or when it was created. So if there is a particular file which was created, suppose today, and rest of the other files you do not want to or exclude. So all the files which were created today, you can add it as or since yesterday. So you can mention as one, and all the files created with minimum 1 day will be excluded. This is not something we recommend that we use this, but yes, we do have an option where you can use it as per scenario or requirement within your flexibility to continue and make sure the business is not impacted. Now let's look into a few other examples as well. So suppose I have to exclude. each user's Outlook profile itself. So this is just one of the example. I'm just showing it so that there could be n number of applications, and according to that, the third party application does provide list of recommended exclusions which is shared to us, or you can use it to apply it across. So if you look into the details, you can see there are a lot of wildcards. So here, let me just go ahead and make the changes. As you see under users, here we have wildcard, that is any user. Under documents, then under Microsoft user data office, uh, this is highlighted as asterisk because it could be n version, it could be 16, it could be 19, it could be 08. So that is what identities it is highlighting to. Again, we have highlighted or given any identity as a wildcard over here, and then all the subfolders. So instead of asterisks, you can also select this, and that will also exclude all the subfolders. So this will work the same. Now, suppose if you want to exclude jar, rar, and var kind of file. So let's go ahead and do. So here we will look into another example, and I'll tell you how it works. So in this example, under private var and temp location, all the jar, var, and tar files are excluded. So if you see, the first letter of the extension keeps changing, but the other remains constant. So instead of adding three different exclusions, we will use the advantage of wildcard, and we will apply question, which means that we it can be anything over here, and accordingly it will be jar, var, and tar, and all these files will be excluded. Now let's move on to the next. Now let's see for on-demand scan policy. If we scroll down and if we click on this particular policy, this is specific to default, which can be used for both Windows and non-Windows. Now let's configure it as per Mac. So here you can see by default, full scan will only scan specific to memory or rootkits, which is only specific for Windows. Running processes, again Windows. All local drive is something which will be used around a Mac, Linux, as well as Windows. So this we can have. Rest other three we can go ahead and remove it. Now let's add another. If you remember in our slides, I had shared all local drives, all fixed drives, all removable drives. Let me select all removable drive, home folder, then user profile folder, then file of folder. Here we have an option where we can specify a particular file, or we can specify a particular path. If you don't have anything specific, you can ignore this. But these are the common ones which needs to be enabled for scanning comprehensively for full scan on Mac devices. If we scroll down further, you will see that the file types being scanned are all file types. It is connected to GTI. In a scenario, if you are looking to add exclusions, the process remains the same. It's just that you will have to add these under full scan in ODS policy. And now if we go to quick scan, if you remember for quick scan, we do not have that many options. So let's go ahead and remove it, which are not specific to Windows. Let's select and use only specific to Windows. So all removable drives, uh, all removable drives, home folder, and file or folder. So here, as I mentioned earlier, if you have a specific path, you can mention. If not, you can go ahead and ignore that. So these three are something which you will have to make that changes across for quick scan, or else by default it will only scan the temp folder. That's all. All the other things remains the same. Again, if you are looking to add exclusion specific for quick scan, you will have to add over here. Right click scan is only for Windows, so we don't have to look into that. Now let's move on to understanding best practices for ENS Mac Firewall. We recommend that you configure these rules that protect your environment in line with your organizational requirement. These are the default rules which comes by default. You can start it, or you can use it as a starting point or reference point, and then you will have to definitely modify it as per your organizational need. uh, if your organization does not have a firewall policy, or if this is the first time your organization uses firewall policy, we recommend that you use default corporate policy. Uh, after you can use adaptive mode for further fine tuning. Remember that adaptive mode must be used to fine tune the firewall rule set, so that the adaptive mode only runs for a short duration to identify the organizational requirement. So you can have a couple of UAT devices where the uh, adaptive mode enabled on the firewall and perform the day-to-day operations. Make a note of the adaptive rules which are getting created, and you can fetch those rules and add it into the current policy for the system, which can be later applied across production system. And that will definitely help to resolve most of the concern. uh, Now let's move to the next point, that is create a defined network for easier rule creation and management. So as I mentioned, you can go ahead and create a defined network under ENS rules policy. We will cover all these things in the demo. I will show where these options come around so that you can make use of it during your BAU requirements. Configuring DNS blocking feature to block known unwanted domains. Uh, this will definitely help you to protect your environment from known unwanted domains. Always use firewall groups. Using firewall rule groups gives you a better way to manage multiple system through one, so that you don't have to create multiple rules. You can just create one rule group, add those rules, and you can apply it across multiple systems using ENS firewall component. Make rules as specific as possible. What we are talking about here is to allow access to a particular website, provide the specific name or the IP address with the port number. So that suppose if you have a web application which is getting blocked with firewall component enabled, get all those details, create a rule group, mention those details, and that will help you to uh, allow its functioning, and it will work without any issue. Use more specific rules on top of the order. Top of the order, why? Because the firewall rules validate using top down approach. So that the higher in the hierarchy is something that is the one which is going to be given preference first, and then something lower down that order will be considered. So suppose if you have allowed in the top and if you have blocked in the bottom, creating multiple rules for the same task, then you will have to look into because it is going to be allowed. So just make sure if you have created a block rule but it is still getting allowed, verify the current rules which is applied on as per the policy, and then accordingly you can remove that and just keep the block, or vice versa. Now let's move to firewall debug logging and analysis. Uh, After ENSM 10.7.5, a lot of logging perspective has changed on the Mac devices. So now, if you have to look into for firewall blocked events on your Mac device, you will have to navigate to var log system log. And if you do a quick find with MFE underscore SFW as the keyword, you will see the depending events as per uh, as per the block or allowed event which was created. Uh, this is something which has come only after 10.7.5. How do we capture firewall stream log? We use firewall stream log to go into detailed logging. So suppose if we are not finding any details, but we have isolated firewall as a component which is blocking a particular operation, then we will first enable debug logging on the ENS common policy for firewall. And after that, we will go ahead and make sure that the McAfee network extension or the Trellix network extension is in enabled state, so that whatever changes we are applying through EPO is getting reflected. That can be verified under system extension CTL list. Uh, then this is a particular command which you can see log stream hyphen hyphen log level. This is the command line which we will use it in our demo, and we will see uh, output of that command will be captured under firewall stream log.txt. And this will this is the log which we generally request from our end customer to share with us for us to troubleshoot, so that according to that we can suggest what needs to be allowed or what needs to be blocked in the environment. As I highlighted earlier, something to note here or remember is that if you just execute this command with firewall debug logging not enabled, it is not going to work. So please make sure under ENS firewall policy that you have this debug logging feature enabled. Now let's look into firewall policy configuration. Uh, In the previous slides, as we saw with regards to firewall options policy and firewall rules policy. Now let's select this particular system as we have done previously for OS and ODS policy. We come over here, we click on View Assigned Policies. Once the page loads, we will select the product here as Firewall. You can see Harsh SS Firewall default policy and Harsh SS Firewall R, that is rules default policy currently applied on this particular system. Let's navigate to policy catalog now. Under firewall component for options, let's go to the policy which is currently applied to the system. This is a default policy. I'll give you a small brief how this works. Firewall is currently enabled. You can see under tuning options, we have something called enable adaptive mode. This helps us during fine tuning a process where we are in a monitoring stage looking into understanding organizational need, how the policy needs to be configured. This definitely allows and it creates adaptive rules locally, which can be then uh, pulled from the system through EPO on-prem service server task, or it can be looked into and manually be created as a rule in firewall rules policy. So if we scroll down further below, we can see further options. Here we have an option with regards to DNS blocking. So if you want to block a particular DNS, you can go ahead and do that. Here you are seeing defined network. If you are looking to define a particular network as trusted or untrusted, you can define it. It can be single IP address, a subnet, local subnet, or a range. FQDN, any IPv4 or any IPv6 is only specific to Windows only as of now, but any IPv4 will work on Mac as well, or any local IP address will also work on Mac too. Now let's go to and check firewall rules policy. As you can see over here under rules, this is the policy which is currently applied to the system. These are the groups or the rule groups to be very specific, which are there. I'll explain further as I shown you earlier in the slide. At the top and the bottom, the hierarchy is considered. So by default, McAfee core networking will be at the top. Any new rule group which you create or you want to move up and down will be aligned just below that. So here, as you can see, allow McAfee signed application is just below McAfee core networking. Any new groups which you are going to create or any rule which you are going to create, kindly assign below that. If you want to understand how a rule is created or how a rule group is created, let me show that to you. Over here, you will have to search for firewall catalog. Under policy, you can see firewall catalog. These are the rule groups which are already created. If you're looking to create any new, you can click over here. Once the rules have been created, this is you can define the name to the group. You can define the local awareness. This works for both Windows and Mac. Uh, Connection isolation is only specific to Windows, but other criteria can be used for a Mac as well. If you are looking to add a different layer of transport or transport layer, you can click on the drop down and you will find the details over here. Okay, excuse me for that. I think it has logged out. Let me sign back in. Okay, so let's go back to the firewall policy where we were. And as I was mentioning, this is the rule group. If you have to create any rule, you can create over here. If you want to add a group, you can create a group over here. If you want to add a rule from a catalog, as I showed you earlier, you can add from there. Or if you want to add a group from catalog, you can also export it or add it from here. With regards to log streaming, as I mentioned earlier, we need to have debug log enabled. Let's go back to system tree once again. If we verify what is the current options policy or the common policy applied to this system, let's go to the same view assigned policy. Here we will select as common. My default policy is currently applied onto that system. You can go to policy catalog, common, expand my default, excuse me. If you see or if you scroll down below under client logging, you will see firewall op in debug logging enabled. So what we are going to do, we are going to enable uh, debug logging for firewall. We can click on save. Once this is saved, we can go ahead and apply it on that system so that it is currently retained what policy changes we have done through EPO.
Now let's look into the log streaming log analysis with few of the examples. As you can see, this command line, which I had shared earlier in the slides as well. Let's copy that. If we come into the terminal window and type in pwd, we will see the present directory. This is this directory I'm highlighting because when we execute this command line, the same place the log is going to be created with the name firewall streaming log.txt. Excuse me. Once we paste the command line and hit enter, you can see firewall streaming log.txt capture has started. As we stop it, we will be able to access this log. Otherwise, it will stay in log status. To stop, we can type in Control Z and it will be stopped. Now, to consider the time factor for our Spotlight series for today, I have already made a note of few of the examples. Let's look into it. For the first example, the issue over here was uh, Active Directory was getting blocked due to firewall. Once the firewall component was isolated, we further started to look into the logs forms log streaming capture. Here you will see you can search with evaluate new policy. This is the keyword. If you look further under evaluate new policy, you are seeing local endpoint, which is the IP address for my test lab, and remote endpoint IP address. Local port is also defined over here, that is 49883 and remote port 389. Protocol 1 is the protocol has ID has been identified over here as 1, while the process path over here is open directory D, which is a process in this case. Direction 1. I'll explain further what these details mean. Traffic details of local endpoint is 10.236.135.240 IP, while for remote endpoint it is 10.239.116.10. Traffic triggered from an application called Open Directory D, while the local and remote port were 49872 and 389 respectively. Protocol in this case was 1. So 1 means TCP, 2 is for UDP, and 3 is for ICMP. Direction for 1 means inbound and 2 means outbound traffic. If we look into the block action which was captured in the same log streaming, here we'll see the AAC group, or the rule group, which is a client group or the group captured through the client evaluated to false. Okay, so if we scroll further and look into the rule final reaction, it was blocked. Here we are seeing that our extension .com.trellix.cmf network extension is blocking the traffic. To resolve this issue, what we can do is we can create a rule highlighting local and remote IP addresses and define the port details under TCP. And once we will apply that rule, the issue will be resolved. Now let's look into the second example. This issue was very specific to traffic related for an application which was blocked. So if we look over here again under evaluate new policies, in this case we are seeing local endpoint as 000.0, while for remote endpoint we have a definite IP address that is 151.101.0.106. Local port in this case is 0, while the remote port connection is 443. Protocol here remains 1. As I explained earlier, 1 is for TCP, while the process path in this case is Slack. You can see the complete process path name or process path detail. That is for Slack. Now, if we look over here, in this case, the direction is 2. So as I explained with the first example, 1 is for inbound and 2 is for outbound. So we will be able to establish that the communication happening was an outbound related. Similarly, as I explained above, this is the explanation for the traffic which has generated. Now, if we look into the block action over here, our extension has filtered out that the rule which is blocking is block untrusted NetBS session, and it came out to be true. So once the rule action was identified and the action taken over here was block, what we can do again over in this case, we can create a rule where we can define the remote IP for TCP, and then instead of inbound, we can create an outbound direction, and accordingly create a rule and apply it for that particular system. This issue will be resolved for that. Now, in a scenario, if we are not able to definitively find out what could be uh, the cause or which rule is the one which is blocking it, what we do in this case is we enable allow all rule. So in all rule, we will just allow all the traffic for our tuning purpose, and when then we'll recreate the issue. Once we recreate the issue, we will get the details, and accordingly, we'll then have to create the rule. So let's look into this example. So here, if we look into the evaluate new policies, the endpoint IP is this, while the remote IP is the one highlighted, that is 10.123.100.8. The port here is 5353 for local as well as for remote. Protocol in this case is two. So as I explained earlier, one TCP, two is for UDP, while ICMP it is three. If we look into the process, this is a Chrome application. So if we look into the Google Chrome process, the direction of communication happening over here is one, that is inbound. So if we look into the reaction when the allow all rule is placed, here we are seeing this rule is getting uh, uh, which is created, allow all, which is coming over true in this case. Here we are able to establish the remote and the local IP addresses and the direction. So accordingly, what we will do, we will roll back the allow all policy and we'll create a new policy where we'll highlight the local and the remote IP address. We'll highlight the port detail, in this case as 5353 for both local and remote, and we'll keep the direction as inbound. When once we apply this rule, the issue will be resolved. In this case, for the application in this scenario was Chrome. Hope this was helpful. Thank you.
I will now be handing over to my colleague Pravas, who will be talking about ATP and web control module for ENS for Mac.
Thank you, Harsh. Hi, everyone. Over the next few minutes, we are going to take a quick look on ENS adaptive threat protection and web control. So let's begin with the adaptive threat protection. What is adaptive threat protection, also referred to as ATP? In the screenshot below, we can see Trellix Endpoint Security for Mac with all four modules installed. ATP is an optional module which complements ENS threat prevention by providing an additional layer of security. ATP works only on managed environments such as on-prem and EPO SaaS. It doesn't work in standalone installs. You must have threat prevention module installed prior to installation of ATP. What it does, it examines executed files and makes decisions on how to proceed depending on file reputation, rules, and reputation threshold. What is file reputation? A reputation is a score given to a file which helps decide if it's trusted, untrusted, unknown, or malicious. It's calculated based on multiple factors such as its signature, popularity, source, and others. Here is a list that has a score ranging between 0 to 100, where 1 is malicious and 100 is clean. ATP closely examines files with unknown rating and below. What are the minimum requirements to use adaptive threat protection on a system? Please refer KB 84934 for supported ENS versions on Mac OS. If using on-prem EPO, the following extensions and packages are checked in. The extensions are Endpoint Security Common, Endpoint Security Threat Prevention, and Adaptive Threat Protection. The packages are Endpoint Security Threat Prevention for Mac, and Endpoint Security Adaptive Threat Protection. Please ensure Threat Prevention module is installed prior to the installation of ATP. System is connected to either TIE or has internet connection to use GTI. How adaptive threat protection works on managed systems. Here is a picture that shows a workflow of a client machine which has both access to Trellix GTI and TIE server. In the first step, an administrator configures policies on EPU server, which gets enforced to the client systems. A user executes a file on the client system. ATP queries the TIE server if available for the reputation. If the file is not in TIE server database, the TIE server queries Trellix GTI for reputation. Depending on the file's reputation, ATP can action it to block or allow the file. Trellix GTI returns the latest file reputation information to the TIE server. The TIE server updates the database and sends the updated reputation information to all ATP-enabled systems to immediately protect the environment. ATP generates and sends an event to Trellix CPO. In this demo, we will take a look at adaptive threat protection on Mac OS. The system is running on current Mac OS Sonoma. This can be verified by clicking on the Apple icon and choose About this Mac. Also installed the current version of Endpoint Security, that is 10.7.9 refreshed build, which was released for Sonoma OS. Click on Trellix icon on the top right and choose About. It shows the version of installed modules that are threat prevention, firewall, web control, and adaptive threat protection. Let's close the window and open Preferences. We have options to manage other ENS modules except adaptive threat protection. This is because it is mainly managed by EPO. Let's take a look at the policies. I have logged into EPO SaaS on a web browser. Navigate to System Tree and then select the group and then the system in question. We can see the system with all the products listed here as well. Click on Actions, Directory Management, View Assigned Policies. I will change the policy focus to ATP from this drop-down menu. Then click the option's policy name to view the policy configuration. Please ensure Enable Adaptive Threat Protection is checked to keep the protection enabled on client systems. The next option down here allows the TIE server to send anonymous file information to Trellix. Under rule assignment, we can choose between productivity, balanced, or security. Use the productivity rule group for high change systems with frequent installations or updates of trusted software. Use the balanced rule group for typical business systems with infrequent new software and changes. Use the security rule group for low change systems, such as IT managed systems or servers with tight control. Action enforcement decide what action needs to be taken when a reputation reaches a threshold. The ratings are known malicious, most likely malicious, and might be malicious. In case the system has access to TIE server, reputation of unknown samples can be changed if required. Let me navigate back to System Tree. Click on the group and check the box next to System Name. Then choose Actions, Tie, and Show Files Used on Systems. This page lists the files which were detected with unknown reputation. We can choose to override the reputation if desired, and the same will be applied to systems which contains the file. For example, if I wish to change the reputation of a sample, just select the checkbox and click Actions. Choose the desired reputation to apply and enter comments. Click OK to apply the changes. The reputation is applied to the file in question. The changes will reflect on systems containing the exact file. Here's another example where we will see how ATP treats a malicious sample. I have placed a file named very low on the desktop. Let's change the reputation on Thai server to known malicious. The reputation change is picked up by ATP and the file is removed from desktop. If we look at the ENS console, the sample can be found under quarantine. Back at the EPO, the same event can be seen under threat events. Let me navigate to System Tree and check the box next to the system name. Then go to Actions, Agent, Show Threat Events. Click on the ATP event to get more details like the threat location, name, and detection type. In case Thai server is unavailable, then reputation change can be requested by reaching out to Trellix support. Please refer KB 91459 to submit a sample and other details as per the nature of request. Let's take a look at ENS Web Control. What is Web Control? Here is a picture of Web Control module installed and in enable state. ENS Web Control monitors web searching and browsing activity on client computers. It protects against threats on web pages and in file downloads. A Trellix team analyzes each website and assigns a color-coded safety ratings based on test results. The color indicates the level of safety for the site. Web Control uses the test results to identify web-based threats. Software installed on the client systems add features that appear in the browser window and search results to notify users. What it does, it monitors each site that you access or browse, validates its safety ratings, and then either blocks or allows the site according to the configuration. Web Control works with Safari and Google Chrome browsers. Please refer KB 84934 for more details. How safety ratings are compiled. Safety rating is a color-coded safety category for a website. A Trellix team analyzes each website and assigns a color-coded safety rating based on test results. The color indicates the safety level of the website. The team develops safety ratings by testing criteria for each site and evaluating the results to detect common threats. Automated tests compile safety ratings for a website by the following: downloading files to check for viruses and potentially unwanted programs bundled with the download, entering contact information into sign-up forms, and checking for resulting spam or a high volume of non-spam emails sent by the site or its affiliates, excessive number of pop-ups, attempts by the site to exploit browser vulnerabilities, deceptive or fraudulent practices that a site uses, The team also compiles test results into a safety report that can also include the following: feedback submitted by site owners, which might include descriptions of safety precautions used by the site or the responses to user feedback about the site. Feedback submitted by site users, which might include reports of phishing scams or bad shopping experiences. More analysis by Trellix experts. The Trellix GTI server stores site ratings. The server is updated periodically with the latest rating and site details. What are the minimum requirements to use web control? A supported OS is used as mentioned in KB 84934. If using on-prem EPO, the following packages and extensions are checked in. Extensions are ENS Common and ENS Web Control. The package include ENS Web Control. Using a supported browser, that is Safari or Google Chrome. Extension is manually enabled for the browser as per KB 89782. The following URL is allowed for site lookup, that is enswebcontrol.repl.gti.trellix.com. Let's see how web control works. A user access a website. If managed, the web control settings on EPO enforces the policy on the client system. Web control requests the URL reputation from Trellix GTI. If the URL reputation is green, web control allows navigation to the URL and displays the page. Otherwise, web control navigates to either the block or want page based on the settings. If the URL reputation is unrated but matches a category in Trellix GTI, web control allows or block navigation to the URL based on content action settings. In this demo, we will take a look at how web control works on a Mac OS. Let's launch Google Chrome first. We see a pop-up confirming the extension has been added. We need to enable the extension manually by clicking on Enable Extension. The extension is now enabled and I can choose to show it next to the address bar. Click on the icon and then on the pin icon next to extension name. A Trellix icon shows up next to the address bar as we can see here. Now let's launch Safari. Immediately we see a pop-up here as well to enable the extension. Simply check the box next to the extension name. You may also check the box to allow in-private browsing. Close the window when done. We see the Trellix extension icon next to the address bar in gray color. Let's visit the Trellix website. As we visit the website, the icon color changes indicating it can access the site. ENS Web Control takes action based on the site ratings. These are represented by different colors, mainly green, yellow, red, and gray. Green is considered safe, yellow could be suspicious, red may contain potential risk, gray, site is unrated or uncategorized. Let us see what are the default policies which have been applied for these categories. I have logged into the EPO SaaS on a browser, and these are the list of policies which are assigned to my machine. The policy that we want to see here is content actions. Let's open up the policy. The default action for green rated site is to allow. Red is set to block, yellow to warn, and unrated is allowed. Let's take a quick look for a red and a yellow rated site. Let me go back to Safari and open test URLs. I have opened up two URLs with red and yellow ratings. The URL with red rating is blocked and doesn't allow to bypass the page. The URL with the yellow rating also wants about the site but has an option to continue. This is the default action which is configured in policy. Next, we shall see how to block URLs using category. I'm going back to the same policy on EPO SAS, clicking on Show Advanced to view the section of category blocking. Let's block the category social networking as an example. Then save the policy to configure the changes. The policy can be pushed out using Wake-up agent from EPO. But for the purpose of this demonstration, I shall enforce the policy locally using Trellix Agent Status Monitor. Here's the Trellix Agent Status Monitor. Click on Check New Policies to receive the changes made on the EPO server. Let's go to the browser and test few well-known social networking sites like Facebook and Twitter. These are green sites but are blocked as we have configured category blocking. In a scenario where you would like to allow a specific website from a blocked category, it can be achieved by another policy named block and allow list. As a test, we shall only allow twitter.com. Back in the EPO, I'm editing block and allow list policy. Click on add and enter twitter.com. Hit save when done. I'm again manually enforcing the policy on the client system. If we try to access Facebook again, it's still blocked by category blocking. However, Twitter is allowed. If there are any websites that needs to be excluded from web control, it can be done under the web control options policy. So let's visit the web control options policy, scroll down to the exclusions, and here we can add in the IP address of the sites that we wish to exclude. URL categorization can be checked on the website trustedsource.org. From the drop-down, select the product as Trellix Endpoint Security Web Control. Type in the website name and then click Check URL. The URL categorization is displayed below. This information can be useful when trying to understand web control behavior or when submitting a reclassification request. If a website is incorrectly classified, please write to sites@trellix.com or just fill in the details as requested below and click on Submit URL for review. Dashboards provides an overall system-wide report for various point products. There are built-in dashboards for web control, which can be used to check the top blocked sites. Navigate to Dashboards and then select Web Control Warned Blocked. It contains the list of top 100 blocked sites. To get more details about the systems which accessed the site, simply click on any of the site name. On the next page, we get to see more details about the site. Scroll down and click on Go to Related Threat Event Log, which should give us a list of machines which access the site. In this case, it's just one machine. So with this, we conclude today's Spotlight series. I thank you all for your participation. Let me hand it over to Nick for Q&A.
Thanks, Harsh and Pravas. As a reminder for everyone, Trellix Education Services offers exceptional training to go along with our award-winning products. If you would like to learn more, please visit the website listed on your screen to see all of our offerings. Now let's get our Q&A session started. I see we have several questions, but it's not too late to add your question. Please type it in the Q&A window to submit. Additionally, take a moment to fill out the survey. Your feedback and suggestions are always appreciated. Is there an EPO removal tool for the Mac?
Uh, Thanks, Nick. I'll take that one. Yes, we do have a script available with support, but it's not available publicly. However, it is intended as a last resort, just in case if the normal or the standard uninstallation methods have failed. So you can reach out to support in case if there are any uninstallation issues, and we may help you with that script if needed.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that one. What's the best practice as far as the order goes with individual products for ENS for Mac for installation? Do you have a recommended process for installation for those products?
Yes, Nick, we do have that. So first we do in order we'll select threat prevention. Then in second we may have firewall or web control, and then finally ATP.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that one. How do the asynchronous and synchronous modes work on the Mac?
Yes, I'll take that one. So async and sync mode are short for asynchronous and synchronous mode. These are available for both threat prevention and adaptive threat protection, and they can operate in both sync and async mode. It's just that by default, both of these modules, threat prevention and ATP, are installed in async mode. So the difference being that the sync mode allows the file scanning before it's opened and takes appropriate actions according to the configuration. And in the async mode, ENS allows access to the file while simultaneously scanning the file at the same time. So in comparison, the async mode can result in faster response time for applications and provide a better user experience for products.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that one. How do you migrate from an evaluation version of ENS to a licensed version?
Nick, I'll take this. So you must first uninstall the evaluation package of ENS before you're proceeding to install using the licensed version of the ENS. That's
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that one. Can different modules, for example, web control and threat prevention, originating from different source packages, for example, the February update or the April update, be installed on a single system?
Nick, to answer that, all ENS module installed on a system should originate from the same source package. So as you mentioned, for the February, so every build has to be in February build package itself.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that one. Will ENS upgrade my older Trellix agent to the latest version?
Yes and no, both. So if end user has a standalone environment, so when the end user upgrades a standalone package, the agent will get upgraded. However, that is not the case when the system is EPO managed. Customer will have to create a separate task to upgrade Trellix agent.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that one. What happens to traffic if the ENS firewall can't reach the GTI server?
Uh, so I believe this question is specific to Trellix GTI networking for the firewall. So this feature is specifically on the Windows, not on the Mac side. However, to answer that, you can configure ENS firewall to either block or allow traffic by default if GTI rating server isn't available or reachable. Configuring the setting if Trellix GTI rating server is not reachable in the ENS firewall options policy under section named as Trellix GTI network reputation.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that one as well. Is it safe to use web control as my only source of security against web-based threats?
Web control is a layer of protection that only protects against web-based threats. It's best to use other protection features of ENS like threat prevention, ATP, and firewall, which should provide greater security in combination.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that one as well. Do you have a similar webinar available that is specific to DLP endpoint overview and best practices for the Mac? I'll take this question. We don't have anything specific for DLP endpoint for the Mac available right now, but I will start to chase that on my side and see if we can't get a webinar created for that topic. I think that would be a good one for us. All right, cool. I think that's all of the questions that we had for today. I want to thank everyone for joining today's webinar, and a big thank you to our speakers, Harsh and Pravas. As a reminder, a link to today's recorded presentation will be emailed to all registered attendees. This concludes today's webinar. Stay safe, everyone.